We live in a world of constant change. The automotive industry is no exception. New players have entered the market and are redefining the rules of the game. Across all industries, products that used to be defined by tangible physical features, by their hardware, are becoming experiences that are largely defined in software. Cars that used to be judged by their horsepower, the number of cylinders, are becoming mobile devices on wheels. Soon, more than a third of the value of a modern car will be defined through its software stack and the ability to evolve that software stack over time to further improve the customer experience through the lifetime of the vehicle. This digital transformation hits the automotive industry hard. To succeed, it needs to adapt. Development paradigms and vendor relationships that have worked for years need to be simplified and streamlined. IT infrastructure needs to be modernized across the board. Only then can automakers accelerate innovation and not only keep up with the competition, but overtake them on the fast lane. SUSE has been helping enterprises take that fast lane to success for almost 30 years. As a matter of fact, 12 of the largest 15 Tier 1 automotive vendors run SUSE. We were able to do so because we believe in the power of many. With open source software as the foundation of your critical infrastructure, you tap into the power of many. Open source projects like the Linux kernel innovate faster than any proprietary software company could. Every 8 to 10 weeks a new kernel is released. Thousands of authors contribute. On average, there's a new code commit every 10 minutes. By embracing open source technology, car manufacturers can join the ranks of the leading industry players in the world and embrace this power of many. Open source also comes with no vendor lock-in. Depending on the phase of development, your in-house skills and the support needs you have, you can pick the level of assistance that fits you best. Standardization is vital for the long-term success of industries because it allows for interoperability between vendors, suppliers, and solutions. In open source, this standardization is customer-driven. De facto standardization happens by jointly working on upstream projects, not by committee. This is why Linux is everywhere these days, from mission-critical infrastructure to mobile devices to even rocket science, like bringing satellites and astronauts safely to space, and even more impressively, bringing the astronauts and the reusable rockets back to Earth. Or, as Gartner has put it, open source is becoming the backbone for driving digital innovation. At a first glance, it may seem that the automotive industry has learned the lesson. Half a decade ago, the first Linux projects were started, mainly for in-car infotainment. These days, many modern cars run one or more Linux instances, and their software stack contains a lot of open source software in their embedded controllers. But to us at SUSE, that reminds us of the early days of open source in the data center, when developers would still download sources from the internet and compile their own kernels, web servers, and databases from scratch, often on Unix platforms that weren't fully compatible with each other. Soon, that industry learned to standardize. Instead of reinventing wheels, they are focusing on what really matters. Running solid enterprise-hardened Linux distributions like SUSE Linux Enterprise Server on commodity server hardware that is certified to work with the operating system that you are using allows you to focus on where you can really create value, your software application stack. With multi-year support and maintenance and access to the whole world of open source software brought to you as a pre-built binary, you can boost your productivity. In other words, we help you tame the power of many. Virtual machines and just recently container technology have further accelerated software innovation. Now you and your suppliers can trust on known-to-work interfaces between the hardware and your software. If your container has worked on the developer's laptop or the QA cloud, it will also work in production, whether you are running it in the cloud, on-premise, or at the edge of your infrastructure. The telecommunications industry was one of the first to fully embrace that paradigm. As part of a concept called network function virtualization, the industry has fundamentally changed the way network infrastructure is developed and deployed. For both landline and mobile services, proprietary hardware stacks with telecommunications-specific protocols are being replaced by easy-to-upgrade commodity hardware that is running software stacks as virtual machines or containers and utilizes well-established general-purpose network stacks that were originally developed for the data center. SUSE has brought those technologies to the data center and is now helping customers and partners with bringing them to the edge. Not just the telecommunications industry, but also healthcare, manufacturing, or retail, to only name a few. The beauty of this development is that you can now standardize your software development and deployment procedures across the whole value chain, from the edge to the core to the cloud. Together with our partner Electrobit, we are now bringing Enterprise Linux to the car. Just like SUSE is an experienced leader in enterprise open source, Electrobit is a leader in automotive software. More than 100 million vehicles and over 1 billion devices run software developed by Electrobit. We are bringing the best of two worlds to the automotive industry. Automotive-grade quality management that will ultimately allow using Linux even as part of the most advanced driver assist systems, with a proven approach to delivering open source software as products, not projects. Just like we've done for many large retailers and manufacturers, we are going to help car makers with hard problems like factory preloads, unattended remote updates, and managing large fleets of software deployments. And we won't stop with just Linux. We are going to bring containers and container management to the car. Once you have achieved that separation between the operating system and the workloads, you can start thinking of new features in the car as containerized vehicle functions. Just like modern mobile phones are basically a sensor suite and a compute platform that an app can turn into many things: a camera, a health tracker, a musical instrument, or a measurement tool. Your software engineers or third parties can now recombine existing sensors and actuators in the car to provide new software-defined features, from theft protection to park assist systems or new levels of autonomous driving. Just like the software that's driving modern web applications, those features can be developed and tested in the cloud. In fact, many of those features may require assistance from actual cloud services like navigation maps or telemetry infrastructure. And you can now develop both the front end in the car and the backends that will be running in the cloud or on your data center core with the same familiar tools, test frameworks, and continuous integration platforms. Now, what makes the SUSE approach so different? First and foremost, we think of our Linux and infrastructure offerings as open source products, not projects. Products that need to be supportable and maintainable for well over a decade. This means that in most cases we can provide security updates without breaking certifications for the complete stack. We support multiple hardware architectures with a single unified code base. So whether you choose Intel or AMD or ARM, you can be sure that the software stack is almost trivial to port. When it comes to open source software, you can look at SUSE and the Open SUSE community as a one-stop shop, where you can get binaries for thousands of open source projects that will work together, or all the world of open source in a box. And finally, SUSE has a proven track record in supporting customers with their most mission-critical workloads for almost 30 years. With our solid business performance, even in troubling times like these, we are here to stay. In embedded automotive software development, you compile the complete software stack in a do-it-yourself way. Integrating components from different layers, like the hardware vendors bought support packs, is on you. And so is certifying the whole stack to meet regulatory compliance. SUSE's approach has always been different. SUSE invented enterprise Linux distributions. By the time the software binary gets installed on your car, it has gone through a unique multi-layer quality assurance. It all starts with the open source projects, or what we call upstream. Today's open source projects, while sometimes still led by enthusiasts, are far from amateur when it comes to ensuring the quality of their releases. Upstream open source projects usually benefit from automated tests that run at check-in time and later make sure that every software release is solid. Our Open SUSE community then picks the upstream software up and uses the automated open build system to build binary packages from it. With our unique build system, we can build binaries for multiple hardware architectures in a highly repeatable way from the exact same sources and track compatibility and software dependencies between those builds over time. As part of the build process, upstream test suites are already run again. Binary packages are then tested on their own before they are added to an Open SUSE community release, which is tested again. On the Open SUSE Tumbleweed rolling release, we release hundreds of package updates per week at a quality that is so high that many community members are using that bleeding edge code as their daily drivers. For SUSE Linux Enterprise, we pick up those packages and harden them even further. Integration tests are run frequently throughout the complete development phase. And throughout the beta phase, many of our hardware and software partners run their own test suites for weeks. We then cherry-pick binaries for the automotive code stream that we deliver to Electrobit. Electrobit has very similar setups to the one SUSE has. On Electrobit's own instance of the Open Build service, additional code can be integrated without having to rebuild the well-tested binaries that come from SUSE. And don't forget, by the time they are shipping, the kernel, the core C libraries, and the compiler suite have already been used for building thousands of packages from source again and again in the build service. With SUSE and Electrobit, just like the hardware of the car goes through thousands of kilometers of test drives, the software stack does as well. This is how SUSE and Electrobit bring the power of many, the power of open source, to the automotive industry. With a simplified and unified containerized software stack, car makers can modernize their infrastructure and processes. That allows them to accelerate development and deployment of software throughout the whole stack, from the edge to the core to the cloud. And together with Electrobit, we bring Linux to the car. We help you with embracing and taming the power of many, so you can innovate faster and deliver experiences, not just means of transportation.